Good morning, Drew.
Good morning, Dan.
Good
How are
morning,
you?
everyone. This is Drew and Dan in the Morning, our first episode of the podcast called Drew and Dan in the Morning, where we talk about whatever comes to mind, software development in the modern age of AI, frameworks, news, tools.
And it is
This is Drew.
definitely morning.
It is.
So, if in case you're wondering, because I've got a coffee cup, which proves morning.
I actually do not have coffee. I've had my coffee. It's late enough in the morning that,
Oh,
but maybe an early afternoon coffee will be fitting. So, uh, Drew, you and I go back how many years? I feel like
I
2018,
feel like,
maybe?
yeah, about 2018 sounds right. Yeah, I think
Right.
we met at a Swift meetup iOS developer. Was that the one you started, or was that some other one? I don't
It
recall.
was. It was certainly Swift. I have a little bit of a love affair, if you can put that word, is to the word certainly. I like the word certainly. I recently started a podcast called Certainly Swift. Not a podcast, a blog, and I named it Certainly Swift. I like the word certainly. And so, yeah, I started a meetup, and you and I met there. You and one other person were the only attendees to the first one. And that meetup came and went, but here we are today with our first podcast. And it will perpetuate forever
Forever.
because the
Yeah,
internet is forever.
exactly. I'm Drew. I've been I started programming when I was about 10, but I've been an iOS software developer for the last 12, whatever years, something like that. Mostly iPad apps, iOS apps, and try to work on my own projects because those are the most interesting most of the time.
Yes, we have the most connection with those. What did you start with at age 10? Do you remember what you
Oh,
were
geez.
programming?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Fourth grade, fifth grade? I don't know, something like that. My teacher, I think it was in fourth grade, but it was the fifth grade teacher had gotten this Apple II Plus in the classroom. And, there was a couple games on there, like a typing tutor thing and a Oregon Trail eventually showed up. But I was interested in like, oh, how does it work? And the basic programming language, and eventually did like assembly. And I
Oh,
went to college for computer science, took a wild couple of detours in some other directions, and then got back to software.
oh, nice. I actually didn't know you worked in assembly language at one point, but
Yeah, for a while. We could talk about that. Maybe not
that's
today. We
very
don't
cool.
want to get everyone off right away on the first episode.
No, no.
Well, let's see. You had a news item you wanted to start
I
with.
did. I ran across some news this morning. It talked about, well, the title of the article, and we'll link to the show notes. It's from 9 to 5 Mac. App Store ratings broken as your 4-star review could hurt a developer. And I thought that was interesting because you and I talked about it on our way back from Deep Dish Swift on the drive. It goes into how do we want to prompt our users or nag our users to rate and review the app? And I'll just quote from the article quick here. Review prompts are the difference between a great app getting 5 positive reviews and thousands of positive reviews. I would never recommend to a developer to not implement the APIs. It's the App Store editorial suicide for most apps, since Apple tends to only pick things up when they have that body of review data. So what I read just from that one little paragraph is like, you need reviews to get your app featured by Apple. I've never had an app
Are we
featured
talking
by
about
Apple.
ratings, like click the star button, or actually reviews, type out words?
Well, it said if you go on in the article, it talks about how a 4-star rating ends up being a negative review. And if you take it from the standpoint that 3 being the default rating, meaning the app performed as expected, I'm reading the
Mhm.
article here, 4 being better than perspective, and 5 being perfect. Like there's nothing you can do to make
Right.
this app better, which I always thought, like,
See,
is it really perfect?
I personally don't think that's true at all. I actually had a rule for a while for my kids that they were not allowed to download anything with less than 4.5 stars because it was usually garbage.
Yeah.
So I think, 4.5 is the baseline, honestly. And I think it gets that way because of the way apps prompt people. I mean, I believe it's still against Apple's rules, but what they usually do is they say, "Hey, how do you like our app?" And if you say, "Oh my God, I love it," and they say, "Well, we'll rate it here for us," and you say 5 stars, they go, "Oh my God, that's awesome. Would you like to rate it on the App Store also?" And then you get 5 stars on the App Store, and oh, a review would really help us. And hopefully you do that. But if you say anything less than 5, they usually will say, "Oh no, what's the matter? What could we do differently?" Maybe put in a little box for you to type something, but definitely don't send you to the review prompt.
Interesting.
And so
Right.
that's why everything you want to be that's why everything's almost, in that 4.5 and up if it's any good.
Right, right. I actually never thought about that. But you say
Yeah.
Apple doesn't they prevent those kind of patterns?
I think that I think that that is not within the terms of their App Store review guidelines.
Right.
I think they'll call that like gaming it or something.
Sure. Yeah. Or you're filtering out negative reviews.
Yeah.
So you never even prompt that. But anyway, I thought it was an interesting article about how, if you have a 4.1 star rating on the App Store, any 4-star review is going to decrease that average. So, in other words, leaving a 4-star
Right.
review is essentially leaving a negative review, which I mean, I'd be pretty happy with a 4-star review. Actually, at this stage of my apps, I'd be happy with any review or users. But yeah, that's
Nice.
anyway, it's an interesting article about is the rating system kind of broken? Should they switch to a thumbs up or a thumbs down rating? Which I think is they talk about with maybe Facebook switched to that model years ago. Netflix is what they cite in 2017, and YouTube switched to that thumbs up, thumbs down back in 2009. So
Yeah.
maybe the 1 to 5 star rating system is out of date. But
Maybe.
yeah.
Maybe so.
That's
Huh.
my
That's
news.
interesting. Let's see what's next here. What have you been working on, Dan? What
Well,
kind of things you've been
well,
working on lately?
a brief history. I've not been developing as long as you, and I started about 10 years ago when Swift was introduced. Actually, I guess that's 12 years ago now because Swift came out in 2014, and
Wow.
that's when I got on the development train, if you will. I started learning software development because of Swift. I'd always been curious about it. I had a dabble with Linux many years ago. That I had a Linux box in my house, a separate computer that I just had Linux installed on. FreeBSD is what I installed, but I didn't know where to go with it. And I didn't really find my footing until Swift came out. And then when Swift UI was introduced, I jumped right on that. And then in 2023, I started developing for the backend using Vapor, sort of Swift on the server. So that's my history. And the current event is two main apps that I focus on: a social network app that is called the Midst, that uses location based, like a map based posting for as the social network. And then I'm working on an app for my wife where she is a very avid runner and has difficulty finding teams to join for these relay races that she does. Because she'll have a 12-person relay and she can fill 8 or 10 slots, but is usually ending up a person or two short. So I'm working on an app called Relay Team Finder that helps match runners to teams and
Now, are
vice
either of
versa.
these live right now in the store?
The Midst is live on the store. Relay Team Finder is not, but my wife is running a relay in August in Minnesota, and I set a personal deadline to have that app out and
All
live
right.
by the time she does that relay. That she can advertise it to her teammates, of course, using my wife as marketing and for obviously testing too, live testing, if you will.
Right. Okay. Well, that sounds like it makes sense. You're hooking up people so you got people that want to be on a team, people that that want to be in a race, but they
Right.
don't have a team to be on. So
Mhm.
they're looking for a team. And then sometimes you've got a team that's probably short people. They're looking for runner, racer, whatever you call them, runners, racers. What do you call them?
Runners, racers, depending on how fast you run, you're either just running or you're racing. But I think at her speed and quite frankly my speed, I'm not racing. I'm just trying to finish.
Potential finishers, we'll call them.
Yeah. But I will finish the app.
Aspiring
I
finishers.
aspiring, but I will finish the app. It's one that definitely has there's a little bit of a market out there. Marketing is a whole nother aspect, of course, that I'm not well versed in, but we should talk about using AI for marketing purposes at some point in our discussion because that is an angle that I'm considering using.
That definitely makes sense.
Um,
I don't know if we have time for that today, but
Yeah.
let's see. But the other thing we did recently, so yeah, Dan and I have been getting together for really, I don't know, a bunch of years, like you said, just kind of off and on, meeting up for coffee, talking about
Mhm.
nerd things and programming and fixing problems and helping each other out. And
Yeah.
it's been good. And recently we went to Deep Dish Swift 2026 in Chicago. Um, and that was fun. That was fun. I will say I haven't been to a conference since before COVID of any sort. I think I went to the last Swift by Midwest in Chicago. That was like the final one. And I went to I think that was the last in-person WWDC, before COVID and everything changed the world. So hopefully I am not you know, a bad omen, and this
Oh,
this deep dish swift will continue on after this one.
oh no, I never even thought of that. No, certainly
Yeah, I
not.
hope I was kinda concerned about that, I don't want that. But it was, I was talking, we were both from the Minneapolis area, and we drove to this conference, and, I was talking to Dan a little bit on the way back that I really feel like this conference had a really good balance of talks. I've been to some sometimes where there's like, they're all technical and nothing else, and other ones that are so non-technical, you're like, "Oh, come on." And, this I think had a really good balance. There were some that went pretty deep technically, which were cool, and
Mhm.
there were some that were more about, if you wanna be an indie developer and just experiences in that area and, you know, recommendations and things to try and things that helped other people. And, besides all that is we also met a lot of really cool people. At least I met a lot of cool people. Dan probably knew them already.
It was my 4th time attending the conference. I've gone every year, and I was happy that you came along with me this year, Drew. So it was a lot of fun having a conference buddy, because I've been to some conferences, I have a conference buddy, and others that I don't, and it's always fun to have a conference buddy, so,
It is. It is.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think one of the things that they addressed that was really right up front and center in the keynote, the opening keynote, was just the general state of the industry today, in terms of, there's a lot of people really concerned about AI, and a lot of people that feel like it's, this is the best thing ever. This is making it so much more productive for this or that. And other people that feel like this is the end of my profession. What the hell am I going to do? And so there's a lot of anxiety and mixed emotions. And, and from that perspective, I would say they had a few talks that really touched on sort of, those emotions and your feelings and how is it, you know, different ways you could sort of approach it and thoughts on the topic. And what do
Yeah.
you think about
One of
that?
the presenters was Adam Tao, and his talk was called "Playing the Long Game," and I think that was very relevant, and it put me a bit at ease knowing that from his experience, and he talked a lot about the Newton platform, Apple's Newton device, that some listeners may or may not be familiar with, depending on how old you are. I remember the Newton when it was out. I never had one, but I remember when it came out, and he talked about how he was all in on the Newton. And then after Apple killed the Newton,
Right.
it
The
was like he
protests, you're
had
talking
the
about Newton protests or something, right?
protest. He
I had never
attended
heard of
or he
that, but that's
organized.
interesting.
I think he said he organized a protest. He certainly participated in it. And that he was so passionate about this platform, and then it was just taken away. As developers, and one of the reasons that I love software development is the fact that it's constantly changing. There's constantly things to learn, and that change is both great and can be stress inducing. And I think the change of AI is, as they discussed in the conference, is somewhat stress inducing because it's not just a change of a platform or a paradigm. It's a change of the job, an employment possibility, and
Right.
I've recently put myself out there for freelancing, and I feel like I maybe couldn't have picked the worst possible time to become a freelancer, because there probably is very little to any freelancing available because people losing their jobs due to AI. But also his talk talked about, don't let the current platform define you. Keep your eyes open for what is coming next, what opportunities are coming next, because there is always something coming next.
Right.
And I took that to
Right.
heart, thinking about the DC coming up this year. I'm really going to have my eyes open for what are the new platforms, what is the new direction that things are moving in software development, and try to embrace that change rather than be afraid of that change, or resist that change. As much as I don't lean too heavily on AI, I want to maintain my foundational skills as a developer, but I also want to embrace the change that's coming.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. And I think that was I think Adam's talk was very good that way.
Mm,
He had a lot of really good points of it. Basically, I think what does he say? 30 plus years as an indie Apple developer. It's a long
mm,
time. And he definitely switched, pivoted, people would say, several times pretty significantly. And that's key. One of the things about the AI and how much it's transformed the work people are doing already today. Cassidy Williams, the opening keynote speaker,
mm.
said in her talk, I think she's at GitHub, right? Is that what it was?
Yes.
Yeah, GitHub. And she said, their own engineers have doubled the number of PRs that they submit over some period of time. Copilot is now the number one contributor across GitHub.
I don't remember that. Wow.
And then this was the numbers that I wrote down because they just struck me. Okay, she said they had 1 billion commits in 2025.
Okay.
Which that's a pretty large number of commits. I can't really think about that
This
number.
is to all of GitHub.
All of GitHub, 1
Okay.
billion commits in 2025. Now, here's the part that's
Okay.
crazy. Right now, they are getting 205 million commits every week. Every week.
Oh my God.
So that is easily 10 times last year, right? 205 times, let's say 50. I know there's 52 weeks, but 200 times 50 is 10,000. If I'm doing math on a live recording.
That's a lot. That's a
But
lot. I'm gonna let
yeah,
you do
that's
it.
a lot though. That's I know it's not. Yeah, it's whatever I said. Yeah, it's a huge uptick though, and that's crazy. And one of the things she pointed out, a lot of people also, several different people mentioned that, we're all just kind of struggling to like keep our heads above water, and you feel like you have to keep on top of each thing that's happening, and if you don't, you're falling behind. You're going to be lost. And she kind of helped reframe that a little bit, where she said a recent Stack Overflow survey. Now this is Stack Overflow, right? Developers mostly. A recent Stack Overflow survey said 85% of developers have touched AI. Microsoft said that 15% of all humans have touched AI, and only 1% of humans actually use it regularly.
Okay.
So this is still very much the leading edge, even though it feels like we're just drowning in absolute newness continually and constant change.
Well, as developers, I think we're kind of in a funny little echo chamber because AI is so relevant to what we do.
Right.
Whereas people in other industries, it may still be a toy or maybe an assistant of some way. I'm trying to think of an example. My wife is a teacher. I don't think she's used AI at all. If maybe once or twice she's maybe looked at ChatGPT on the website, and it is not in her orbit, if you will. Whereas we are inundated with it, so we have a little bit of a distorted perspective as to how the popularity of this
Yeah. I think
tool.
that's true. I mean, my kids know about AI. My wife
Mhm.
knows it exists, but never does anything with it, except for
Right,
maybe Google's insights or whatever when she searches for something.
right. You can't
Um,
avoid it there.
let's
Yeah.
see what else. What else did you take away
Another
from Matt
Well, another talk that was
Dish?
interesting on the technical side of things, that was given by David Beck. I wrote down his talk title was "Surviving in Low Connectivity,"
Oh
and that
gosh,
was
yeah.
a very interesting talk for me because my app does rely on a network connection just for posting social. As a social network, it obviously relies on the internet for most of its functionality. And he gave some good insights. The most useful to me was that if you have low connectivity, it's hard to tell and hard to test for because just using the iOS simulator to simulate low connectivity is not necessarily reflective of what happens in the real world.
And
He's a
you're
developer for
talking about the what is that thing called, the tool that
yeah,
goes with the simulator, or you can have it on your iOS device that is
right. Yeah,
gosh,
it's like
network or condition network.
yes, nice, yes.
Okay, yeah,
Which honestly I haven't really played with because I can only attack so many things in one day, and I haven't really played with it. But he said a way to help your app survive in low connectivity was focus on what your app is uploading, not necessarily the download issues, but upload issues. And if you're making network requests, look at your headers. What are you sending in your header? And if you can reduce that by any margin, that'll really help if you are in a low network connection or poor connection state with your app. And so I need to dive deeper into that. I only made notes about it. I haven't actually worked on that because well, it was a week ago that we got back from Deep Dish Swift.
right,
So
right. One of the ones that
I haven't tackled
stuck out to me that he talked about too, which was he was talking about the difference between HTTP 1, HTTP 2, HTTP 3, and
right.
HTTP 1 was just like one connection for one request, and then and then they added the thing where you can do one request and then keep the connection open and do another request, and then HTTP 2 like multiplexes them so you can have multiple requests going simultaneously, but they don't need to complete in order.
Mhm.
Um, and then HTTP 3 uses this other protocol instead of TCP. something called Quick, which I don't really understand, but yet. But the thing that was interesting is he was talking about compression, and he said in HTTP2 and HTTP3, headers are automatically compressed, and he said something about the headers aren't resent if there's a resend or something. Did you follow that part?
Yeah, I remember him talking about that. And if you Oh, I'd have to look back at that or look deeper
Mm,
into that because it was something about don't just resend and resend and resend because you're just jamming the pipeline. I mean, it was an interesting point to make. I don't know. My knowledge of network requests isn't deep enough to know if my app is resending and resending. I think it just sends once and there's just a
mhm.
timeout that's going to happen. So and
Right,
then
and
it'll
I know when you
fail.
use URL session, it will automatically retry, on s I think everything and not post requests, but I think everything else pretty much, I think it's retried, and one of the things he was also saying is make sure that whatever you're sending is retriable, and that and by that, I mean that if it shows up twice, it doesn't mess anything up.
That's
Like, let's
right.
say you send it
That's right.
twice and you don't wanna all of a sudden be duplicating somebody's post because the message got there twice or whatever.
Right. Right. Oh, so
But he also was
URL
talking about the
session.
compression. He said, the responses are normally compressed, the replies coming back to you. But he said the request, like your outgoing request, is usually not compressed, although you normally can compress it, which is, I didn't realize that either. So
Hmm.
that might be a way to save a little bandwidth.
Yeah, things to look into. It was very insightful because he made the point to show that he actually went out as a developer. He went around for a full day with a dasher, somebody delivering food,
Right.
and how the app works in these different areas of the town that he's in. And sometimes they're in a building or in an elevator, and is the app still functioning? And I mean, these are real world tests. I admired that
Yeah.
they do
Yeah.
that
He went
at
into a
DoorDash.
lot of detail, which was great. We're not going to hit every little piece here, but
Well, no.
the one other thing was just thinking of, that he had said was that, usually when your app just stops working, you usually have some connectivity. And what it
Mhm.
usually is you have some reasonable downstream coming to you connectivity and a very, very low upload connectivity speed. And, kilobits, like small amount. And he was saying if you need to have, certain requests that really need to get through, that really the only way to do that is to make space for them in your own sending of messages. So like,
Hmm.
maybe don't retry everything super aggressively or actually, for the things that matter a little less, don't send them back to back and make sure there's a spot. So if you have something that is important that you can get it through. And that's what he said he was working on for I guess the Dasher for DoorDash, the
Yeah.
Dasher part of that system.
It was a great conference. I loved it. I always leave energized from the talks, from meeting new people and just being in a room with people that are creating things, tackling problems and talking about the successes that people had and the failures. It's just it's always a very inspiring conference, which is why I've been year after year and I'm already looking forward to next year as well. These conferences are very inspiring. They're tough to schedule around, work around, and they're expensive to go to, no doubt, unless you can get your company to pay for it, which would be nice. But I
Right.
am my own company, so it's me. It's me paying for it, but I really enjoyed it.
There was it Chad Etzel reverse
Yes,
engineering the macOS Genie animation. And this was the last talk or presentation before the closing keynote. This was, he kind of went over the top on this, I'll say.
he did.
Uh, he went into, it started out as kind of like, he was almost like a dry comedian, almost like kind of
Yeah,
starting out real slow and real just kind of detailed. Oh, I tried this and that wasn't it. And then, he shows some demo he did, which he obviously spent a lot of time on and, talks a little bit more, does it again, and went all the way through until he had really figured out how to make that little oh, and if anyone doesn't know, sorry, the macOS Genie animation, that's what we call it when you minimize your window in macOS. It just takes like the window content and it goes down into the
sucks down
little,
into the dock. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
into the
doing it right
dock.
now. Yes,
Right,
he went
right.
into the most math I've ever seen or heard about Bezier curves.
Bezier
It
curves.
was really well done.
He says all Bezier curves are a pile of lerps in a trench coat. That's what I wrote down.
That's right. What was a lerp? Did you write down what a
LERP,
lerp
yeah,
was?
it's linear interpolation. See, I knew what that one was. That actually, that's linear interpolation. It's basically saying, hey, if you have a value here and one here, linear interpolation is basically, give me the value that's some percentage between these two,
Ah,
whoever
okay.
they are, and whether this value is just like a line, like if this is 6 and this is 10, 50% would be 8, so if you
Sure.
give it the 50%, it would give you 8 back. But you could do it with not just 2 points. You could do it with like a two-dimensional location, coordinates,
Mhm.
or 3 dimensions or more or whatever. But yeah, basically, I don't know. That's what he said. He said a lot of things that made a lot of sense when he said them, and a lot of them now are sort of out of my head.
Sure. Yeah. Well, seeing it on screen, it was the most fun I've ever seen math be shown. I'm not a mathematical person at all, and it was a great demo with math.
And the end of his talk, um, he was going to just give us an example, showing, "Hey, look, I've done this reverse engineering of this thing." And so he had dummied up a demo app that looks like macOS. I forget, he
Fun.
had it that said macOS, some version alpha, whatever is available, and then
Mhm.
he clicks it, and it looks like it's load something up, and it's like, oh, it's running on my iPad. See, macOS on my iPad, and it was like, I mean, it's fake, but he
Right.
had like he had the menu bar and the dock, and he had icons, and he had window. You could click one of those things, and it would open and have things in it and close, and he had messages supposedly appearing, and we
Right.
spent a lot of time on that demo at
I
the end, and it was
I don't know
super,
how he did
super
that.
amusing. Yeah.
It was very well done. It was like the macOS running on his iPad. It
Yeah,
was very well
he
done.
implemented a whole lot more of Mac. It's like, and here's macOS, for my for my example. It was just kind of a lot. I'm not sure who was the most amusing, if it was that or if it was Mustafa's Yusuf's CloudKit presentation where we all learned. What do we do, Dan?
Force unwrap all the
Force
time.
unwrap, because we don't make
Yes.
mistakes.
We don't make mistakes,
Right?
and
No
network
errors.
errors never happen, and you'll never reach a fatal error. Fatal errors and force unwraps everywhere. It was what not to do, but he did it, really entertaining way. The crowd was laughing. A good part
Yeah.
of the presentation. That was a very funny use of a live coding demo. I don't use CloudKit the way that he was demonstrating it, but he was doing like a manual CloudKit sync
Right. Right. Just kind of
implementation.
letting you get into the sort of the nitty gritty there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, well, I think that's it for today. What are we gonna? We have any teaser for next time?
I think we could get into a deep dive of either the project that you're working on, which we could keep a secret, or part of the project that I'm working on that I've already said what it is. But I think we could get into a deep
Okay, so
dive.
an
Or where,
interesting deep dive next time then.
yeah, I think that's a good next step to go from here.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for humoring us for 30 minutes. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Talk to you later, Drew.